family with law enforcement background. I have a brother who has been with Metro for 27 years. My father was at the test site, and then when he retired, he went with Metro. I have 2 nephews that are there, and my other brother, who's from Omaha, is a detective as well. Having said that, I myself started my career at the District Attorney's Office. I was there for just over a year with Stuart Bell, and then I left to go out on my own and try to make it in private practice. I'm proud to say that I have, and it's been one of the greatest pleasures I've had. I've made a lot of very good friends. Some of them are judges, some of them are prosecutors, and some of them are defense attorneys. It's been a great career for me, and in the back of my mind, I want you to know I've always had it to where I thought I'd want to be a judge, and this has just been the right time for me to make this jump, and I look forward to it, and it's something that I really want to have, and I'm going to work as hard as I can to get it. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to go ahead and start with our panel. We left off, the first one's going to speak here is Mr. Richard Hawkins. Oh, you want to pass it on? All right, we're going right to Melody Howard, who's the president of the Nevada chapter and national chapter of Veterans Politics.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. I know both of you probably were sitting through some of the questions on the Veterans Court.
Yep.
Give me your thoughts on how the Veterans Court calendar can be improved in Clark County.
I'm currently working with Judge Tobiasen with respect to that issue. Currently, you're correct, it is only a calendar and it's not an official Veterans Court. I'm a member of the National Association of Drug Court Professionals, and that organization also includes Veterans Courts. I currently preside over Drug Court and Las Vegas Justice Court, so that's why I'm a member of that organization. I'm making arrangements to have Judge Tobiasen visit a Veterans Court. The NADCP has a program, Washoe, to visit a Veterans Mentor Court. So before we organize an official Veterans Court, we need to go see another Veterans Court and see how they operate. I was just speaking with Mr. Sampson about that, and he suggested Washoe County. Beyond that, I'm going to take her to the conference in May in Nashville and have her attend all the sessions on Veterans Courts to get it started.
Thank you. Keep forgetting to pick this up. Thank you. I think first and foremost the way that it can be improved is with good citizens such as yourself, because it appears to me that in many cases you're more knowledgeable than is what is going on in the courts at this time. Let me be the first to say that you have probably one of the best jurists in Justice Court that is handling it, and so you have a very good ally and person that will help veterans. I think that it's incumbent upon you to try to reach out as well to speak with her, and I know she would be open to that. I also think, and when you read the statute, and I know you have, 176A, it's a district court that they speak of. And I do not believe that currently that the cases are being handled the way they're being handled in district court. And and what I mean by that is that the statute clearly says that these cases are to be stayed. Imposition of sentence is not to be imposed. And so there's no judgment. And when they do what they're supposed to do, these veterans, it's to be dismissed and it's to be sealed. Currently, I have one client right now that I'm going to be getting into Veterans Court, and it is for a DUI. And I'm getting resistance from the state saying, well, they can go into it, but it can't be dismissed. In my opinion, that is against the statute. To say that you can have a felony and it can be dismissed but not a misdemeanor doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So there are certainly some gray areas. I need to wrap up, but I do think that we need to get with the Justice Court judge that's handling it, and I have full faith that she would be receptive.
It's an important issue to this group, so we got to let that go on. Judge Zimmerman, do you have any brief response?
Well, I think it would make the most sense to have the Veterans Court and Justice Court, because over 90% of the felony cases that are filed stay in Justice Court. So when I send somebody to Judge Tobiasen's Veterans Calendar, there is no negotiations. I send it to her department, and they decide how to proceed. So I'm not familiar with what Ms. Chelini is talking about, but we just send them to Veterans Calendar, and they handle the case there.
5 seconds.
Very brief. All I'm speaking of is the statute. I'm speaking of the Nevada revised statute. It doesn't apply to justice. If they want to send to justice, ladies and gentlemen, that's great. All I'm saying is let's have the disposition at the end to have the dismissal. If they, that's all that I'm saying. So go to justice court if you want to go to justice court. That's what I'm saying, and I hope it's clear, and I think you understand what I'm saying.
Mr. Berry, Dan Berry, retired police officer of Metro.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for being here this morning. I appreciate what you do. Since the early 90s, we've had this war on drug, and we've seen that our prisons are way overfilled right now, especially in light of this economy. Real short, what's your philosophy as far as the philosophy of incarceration versus the philosophy of rehabilitation? And do you think rehabilitation is even realistic? Well,
I do. I've presided over drug court for the past 3 years, and I have to say that it was an eye-opener to take over this function. There's been many successes in drug court where people have successfully overcome their drug addictions. And, you know, the whole point for that, for everyone, is if they can overcome their addiction, then they're going to quit committing crimes and being part of the criminal justice system. It's a win-win for everyone because it's much less expensive to treat somebody's addiction than to incarcerate them. I can tell you, you put a drug addict behind bars, the day they get out, they're going to celebrate. So you really haven't solved anything. You know, having said that, though, I mean, you know, there are crimes that are being committed and those need to be addressed too, but if we can help them overcome their addiction, that's going to be a win-win for society and a win-win for everyone.
I believe firmly in rehabilitation for nonviolent drug offenses. Anyone who's had any experience with drug court, and Judge Lehman was the kingpin for that, no pun intended. But there's a tremendous amount of success stories with that, where people do make a mistake, they go, they prove themselves, and if when they're in the program they slip, that doesn't mean that their case should close or they should be convicted. Sometimes they'll go to jail for 2 days or 20 days or whatever the case may be, but we keep them in rehabilitation. And if you can rehabilitate some of these people, I guarantee you they're not going to commit more crimes. So you have to look at why are they committing crimes. Now with these cases, the judges have to use a common sense approach. Some cases, yeah, you should definitely do that. In some cases, maybe the violent ones, you know, they probably wouldn't qualify anyway under the statute.
Yeah, she's still 10 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's 10-second bell, just so you know.
That's okay.
Did you want to finish your thought there?
That's okay.
Okay. Mr. Brown.
Sort of judicial philosophy question here. Some judges, and in my experience, they tend to be the older judges, are relatively detached and clinical on the bench. They get on the bench and make a decision, they get off. Other judges, and they tend to be the younger judges, and by younger I mean our age. They tend to savor a more active role in the cases going on before them. And when I say judicially active, I don't mean I don't mean legislating from the bench. I mean in terms of drug court, for example. At least Judge Glass was very personally involved in each one of those cases, knew each one of the defendants' names, knew the situations in their lives, who they were living with, what their employment situation was like, played a very active role in those people's lives as their judge. My question is to judicial philosophy between those two extremes, between the sort of cold clinical and the more involved first name basis. I want to see you every week. I want to keep you on a short leash. I almost have a personal vested interest in seeing you succeed. Where do you see yourselves falling in that spectrum? And why?
Well, I think it's important to strike a balance, but, you know, with respect to your comments regarding drug court, it's impossible not to be personally invested when you preside over drug court because you get to know these people on a personal level. When somebody joins drug court, the first thing that I do is have them write their life story for me so I can know what their background is, because everybody's story is different. So you get to know them. The most heartbreaking stories in drug court are the young kids who are addicted to heroin. It's just nearly impossible for them to kick. So you're working with them every week, encouraging them. They relapse. You know, that's not the time to incarcerate them. You try something different, you know. I think I don't know how you couldn't, you know, at least have personal feelings about it. You wouldn't be human. So I think it's important, but you got to strike a balance. I do drug court every Monday afternoon, and it feels like a 3-hour therapy session when I'm over. When it's over, it's kind of exhausting, to be honest with you, but it's completely worth it and very fulfilling.
I agree in the sense that you have to be balanced. I mean, it depends on the certain, in justice courts, you're going to have all different kinds of charges before you, from misdemeanors to felonies through a preliminary hearing stage. In the area of specialized court, veterans court, drug court, absolutely you need to be involved. Otherwise, you would just be horrible at what you're doing. That's a different sort, and I think you being a practitioner, you appreciate that, and you understand what I'm saying. That is something that it is therapeutic, and you have to get involved, and you care about these people because we want them to succeed. The judges want them to get these cases closed, get them on the right track, be it, as I said, veterans court or drug court. I don't care who the specialty court is. So in that setting, absolutely, you have to be involved.
Can I say one more thing about that, and feel free to comment, but when I'm presiding over drug court, some of these people have family support, but some of them do not. So I might be the only person that really cares if they succeed or not. So that's where the personal involvement becomes really important if I'm the only one who's cheering for them. So I think that's important.
Currently, there's a case before the U.S. Supreme Court, U.S. versus Alvarez, in which Mr. Alvarez was convicted of violating a stolen Valor Act, in which he basically falsely claimed that he was a Marine, rescued an ambassador, received a Medal of Honor and a Purple Heart. And the question is whether the First Amendment applies, or whether Congress has an interest in protecting the integrity of the medals awarded system. What is your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on it are that it is not a First Amendment issue. I believe the Valor system was created by George Washington, if I'm not mistaken. There is these men and women put their lives on the line for these awards, and it's a fraud. It's an absolute fraud, and I do not believe that that is protected by the First Amendment.
I agree 100% with Ms. Chelini. I don't think that the First Amendment trumps, in this situation, nor do I think it trumps in those people picketing outside of military funerals. That offends me to no end.
Thank you, Travis Barrick here. Travis Barrick here, attorney in town. Ms. Chelini, what did you do for NHTSA?
For what?
NHTSA, National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration.
That was a program that was offered in which we actually took the standardized field sobriety testing and got certified, just as Metro would.
Yeah, I was one of the drinkers in those
Were you?
days.
And how is it that you signed up for that job? I'm just curious.
What is this question?
Yeah. So we actually did the HGNs and all of that stuff.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
What's a reasonable amount of time for an officer to detain somebody in a DUI checkpoint?
Well, again with this microphone, I keep forgetting.
And of course, I'm talking about the precursor to having reasonable suspicion.
Correct. Well, if you look at the statute, and it's been a while since I've had this issue before me, but I believe it's 60 minutes is generally the time frame that the law provides for that.
God, that's scary, don't you think?
I think it's frightening, very particularly for the person.
All right.
If you've ever been pulled over by a police officer, 10 seconds is too long.
10 seconds is long enough. Thank you. Judge Zimmerman, what's up with the coroner's inquest?
That's a question.
I warned them. When the county commissioners got the brilliant idea to change the process, and the original process had its issues as well, but I tried to tell them if they changed it the way they wanted to change it, it would just shut it down, and that's exactly what's happened. So I don't know what. I mean, what's up with it? Absolutely nothing. Nothing's happening. Nothing's getting heard. Lawsuits are pending. We're awaiting decisions. Nothing's happening.
What should happen?
With the lawsuits, or You know, I mean, if you look at it, like the judge's role in the coroner's inquest process, we're just kind of the master of ceremonies. We're not making any decision, we're just presiding over it. So we don't really have much say in it. We're ready and willing and able and ready to start hearing these cases, but, you know, with the lawsuits pending, there's nothing going on. So, should we go back to the old system? I don't know. There's a lot of flaws in that system too, but I think this one is worse. I mean, now we can't find out anything that's going on, you know, with the officer-involved shootings. So nobody knows anything for the last 15 shootings.
Hi, good afternoon, ladies. My name is Teresa Price, retired Air Force. I was just curious as to what your opinions are with regards to Attorney General Holder's findings last week, that during the mortgage securities fraud investigations, that it was found that the actions of those accused were unethical but not illegal, and therefore could not be prosecuted in a court of law. However, when the end result is a grand theft, in this particular case, it's some $800+ million from across the entire nation, where do you draw that line and say, you know, if I stole a loaf of bread, I'd go to jail for a month, and these guys steal $800 million and they walk away because it wasn't illegal?
Did you see the police officer who was charged for stealing the food out of the refrigerator in the office at the station house? I'm outraged and appalled that that he thinks that no crimes were committed, and I think $800 million is too low of an amount. I think the people who are responsible for this should be prosecuted, and I think it's probably going to be up to the state attorney general's offices to pursue those prosecutions, and there's a lot of states that are. So I would completely disagree with his findings. I don't know how you could find that what took place is not criminal.
Ditto. You know, I mean, it seems simple, but really, I mean, I question the amount and how anybody could say with a straight face that what occurred and what happened to all these people was not criminal is beyond me. And perhaps if the Attorney General was a victim or somebody who knew us, his opinion would be different.
Forgery is still a crime in most states.
Good afternoon, ladies, and thank you very much for coming and answering our questions. I've been up at that table myself a couple times, and I know it's very challenging, so thank you very much.
It's fun.
Yeah. So I have kind of a loaded question for you, and it's for both of you. Do you believe in the current system of electing judges? And if you do, what do you say to those that allowing for judges to be elected just allows money to corrupt the system and stops it from being a true independent judiciary here in Nevada?
I think the change they've made most recently that has helped, but it's still awkward. Last time I ran for re-election in 2006, the filing period was still in May. So that meant I could raise money all the way till May and then find out if I have an opponent or not. So now the filing period is in January and I cannot raise money unless I have an opponent. So that's an improvement, but that doesn't change the awkwardness of raising money from attorneys who appear before us. So it is a flawed system. I think an appointed system might be better, but it takes the vote out of the hands of the people. The problem with the vote in the hands of the people is we have a hard time educating the voters on our qualifications and experience, because that's what we run on, qualifications and experience. So I have mixed feelings, and I'm not sure. I was elected in a free election, so I think that's great, but I can understand why appointed might be better. Also, it takes the money out of the game, and that would be better for voters.
Ms. Chelini?
Thank you. It is a loaded question, you're right. On the one hand, it is very awkward to have to go out and ask your peers, and I can only imagine for a judge to have to ask people who appear in front of them to give money. But you need to understand that in an appointed system, there's politics involved as well. If you want to be appointed and you think you don't need to know anybody, I I don't think you're going to get appointed. So it's a fine line, and all you can do with this is when you go for endorsements, is be honest with people. Don't tell them what you want to hear, so you don't feel what they want to hear, so you don't feel beholden to them. And I think that's all that you want. And because if you want a judge who's fair, impartial, that's all you can ask for. There's going to be times when you're not happy with the courts, but if they're fair, I think at the end of the day you'll understand and you'll appreciate that.
Richard, we're coming back to you. Do you have a question yet, or do you want me to pass it on to Karen, who I know is chomping at the bit back there?
Well, in that case, Karen, they're yours.
No, they heard the question I had earlier, and that's pretty much the same question I have now. You know, the system being what it is, and human nature being what it is, it's really easy for people to forget that they're elected by the people, and that they serve the people, and it's really easy to become comfortable in your position and basically take on the law as your own and not serve the people. So I just wanted to know from each of you what you want from being a judge and how you think you do that better than the person sitting next to you. I'll start with Ms. Zimmerman.
Well, I've had a lot of practice in the last 12 years at becoming a better judge, and I know that I'm a better judge today than I was 12 years ago when I started. That's just human nature. I feel very comfortable, and I don't mean comfortable like I'm comfortable occupying my seat on the bench, but I feel comfortable every day that I take the bench and I try to be fair and impartial to everyone, and I try to treat everybody with courtesy and respect, and I expect the same in return, and I expect everybody in the courtroom to conduct themselves with courtesy and respect towards each other, whether it's two attorneys that are getting heated with each other or a defendant or a witness. Everybody's going to conduct themselves in the same appropriate fashion. I work really hard to be fair to everybody. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to be an independent, impartial, and honest judiciary. That's what we're tasked with doing, and I've worked really hard to obtain that reputation, and that's the reputation I have.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that question, because I think that when you are a member of the court, it's important for you to get back out into the community, back out to groups such as yourself. Just in the short time where I've been campaigning and doing this, the #1 complaint I hear from various groups are that, you know, we only hear from these judges when they have an opponent. Otherwise, we don't hear from them. And I see you nodding, so I know you're in agreement with this. And I think it's so important to stay in touch so you don't lose track of what's going on and what's important. Because what's important now, I'll tell you what, in 3 years, there's going to be something else. And we need to be aware of that. So we don't get too comfortable where we are. And you need to be courteous on the bench and not legislate and not get involved with negotiations. Respect the state knows the case better than yourself, and the defense attorney knows it better as well. They're both handling it. Don't get involved with it. Treat people with respect, be courteous, and stay involved in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, that will end our questioning of Judge Zimmerman and Ms. Chelini for Justice Peace Department 8. So,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. At 2:30, we're going to start our last interview process of the day for the Justice of Peace North Las Vegas Township Department #1 with Michelle Anthony, Will Ewing, Chelini and Jonathan MacArthur.